Hello YouTube, today we are working on OP program, and he just gave me the program by itself. He didn't tell me that he had certain prerequisites, he didn't explain why he was training, so I'm just going to just jump in and critique the program as it is. So it's a program that is spread on 2 weeks, so there's 2 different weeks, which means that I'm expecting to see a lot of rotations and lifting variations, which means that there's a chance it might potentially be good or bad because there's a certain way you're supposed to rotate lifts, and if you want to know how, check the playlist. I made 2 videos about it. He trains on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sundays, and that the way the days follow each other is replicated on both weeks, so it's 5 days a week. And based on what I see, this looks a lot like an upper-lower template, but without the limitations of that template, meaning that it's a gentleman split. It's what most people are going to gravitate towards once they understand programming, because the push-pull legs and the upper-lowers offer a good repartition of lower and upper when it comes to splitting. But you quickly realize that if you follow them, you're going to limit yourself, because sometimes you want to do upper body lifts on lower days. Sometimes you want to do lower body lifts on upper days. So if you get rid of those limitations but keep the structure, you actually get to something that is much more beneficial because it's more flexible. Okay, week 1. On Monday, he starts with incline barbell bench, superset with lat pull downs, wide grip. Okay, so it's an hybrid of a vertical press, superset with a vertical pull. I like the concept. And the rep range is the same for the 2, which sometimes is bad. In that case, I would say it's bad. Why? Because the rep range is 4 sets of 7 to 10. I like the rep range for the incline. I don't like it for the lat pull down. I do think that the lat pull down would benefit from an 8 to 12. Sometimes you're going to superset 2 things, and it's going to be your first instinct to match the rep ranges. It doesn't have to be that way. It's actually often better to not match it. That being said, if you're going to go completely antagonistic and have one in a super low rep range and one in a super high rep range, that also has issues. But I'm going to develop that more in the hypertrophy series when I talk about supersets and how to set them up proper. Okay? As far as the superset goes, I say often that I don't like lat pull downs. I think people would be much better off doing pull-ups instead, for multitudes of reasons that I might put in a video one day. After that, it was hammer machine flat chest press, so a pure horizontal press using a machine, superset with barbell seal rows. 2 horizontal movement, 1 a press, 1 a pull, supersetted. Again, that's quite smart. And it's quite smart. Why? Because it's going to provide upper body volume. And the upper body volume is going to be in the upper back, which is a body part that is able to handle a ton of volume, so why not superset it? Some people also say that it's because you're going to protect yourself by supersetting antagonistic muscle groups by pushing and pressing. That might be true, but to me that's not the main reason why people should be doing that. And the same logic, it's 3 sets of 8 to 11. Here I think that the reps and the sets match, and that's good. With the seal rows, actually, the good thing with the seal rows is that since it doesn't recruit the legs and the lower back, this is one of the very few horizontal pulls that I would tell people to start doing with more intensity, so in lower rep ranges. But here, it's good also with high volume. It might be an issue for some people because your grip is going to fatigue faster. In that case, just use straps. So that's a good superset. After that, cable row with a narrow grip. So it's technically an horizontal pull, and it's 3 sets of 9 to 12. Then he does cable crossover superset with cable rear flies, 3 sets of 11 to 15. So higher rep ranges for the machine stuff, which is always good. Then he does triceps rope underhand pushdowns, 2 sets of 13 to 16, good rep range, especially since there's only 2 sets. Superset with side raises. So all of that superset stuff, that's good. Why is it good? Because it doesn't replace the compound movement, it doesn't replace the heavy work. I have nothing against machines, I have nothing against isolation. It's important if you want a good physique. but they need to exist within the program without replacing something else because they cannot replace compounds. I do think that the cable row narrow grip, just sitting there by itself, is a little strange, especially since you don't superset it with anything. I would tell you to just take it out of the program because I do think that you get plenty of back work, you don't need that extra movement. So I would say maybe rotate the narrow grip with the cable horizontal pull with the seal rows, because it does look strange in the program. It doesn't really fall into place. So that's a day that's extremely focused on chest and upper back. That's good. I do see a lack of long head of the tricep work because you're working presses. You will get some real delt from your isolation with the cables, so that's okay. The shoulders get worked, the pecs get worked. Yeah. And then the traps, the upper traps don't really get worked, so maybe you could slap that in as well. On Tuesday, he does safety squat bar, 4 sets of 8 to 10, so that's strength work. You'll notice that he didn't do strength work on Monday, at least what I call strength work. Why? Because he superset his incline bench with a lat pull down. But if there's one lift that you can get away with not treating as strict strength work, it's the bench. So that's okay. But that's good. 4 sets of 8 to 10. I do think that as an evolving rep range, the rep range is too small. 8 to 10 for 4 sets. 8 to 10 would be better with 3 sets. So if you do 4 sets, you can try 8 to 12. SSB squats are amazing. Then he does plate-loaded deadlift machine for RDLs, which are okay too. The only issue I would have with this is that unless you have a very advanced machine, I've always seen those machines as having the handles on the side like a trap bar, which is not the best for RDLs. Why? Because the weight is not in front of you. So the hip hinge cannot be as extreme. Why? Because when you hip hinge, the ends are ahead of you by a while. They're not here. So having the ends just down by your legs is going to really reduce the amount of hip hinge you can give, which reduces the stretch on the hamstrings. I would tell you to do the same lift with a bar. I think machines, I've never seen a machine able to replicate what a deadlift can do. And you do 2 sets of 8 to 10. I think that's a little bit low. Then you do hip thrust machine. Okay, again a machine. 4 sets of 10, that's a good rep range. Glute ham raise, 3 sets of 10, plus reverse hypers, 2 sets of 15. Okay, so I see a lot of work for the posterior chain, and I don't have anything against that. It's critical for injury prevention and for size, but you would get better results if you just picked one movement and you pushed it. So instead of doing all of that stuff, I tell you do barbell RDLs, 4 sets of 8 to 12, push it, okay? And then you can either do hip thrusts or you can do reverse hypers and you will be covered. You don't need to do the line hamstring curls, all of the glute ham raises. Just do your compound and do one isolation for the stretch of the hammies and for the health of it, and you'll be good. That's too much isolation. Then you do seated calf raises, that's good. 3 sets of 15 to 20, good rep range. Donkey calf raises, 3 sets of 15 to 20. So I expect you to have a pretty good level for the calves if they are able to handle 2 exercises like this back to back. That's possible. If you don't, you should also focus on one movement and keep pushing progression on that movement. After that, cable oblique twists. I'm not a big fan of all of that twisting stuff. I really do think that the obliques will get worked plenty if you just do leg raises and compound movements, but if it works for you, it works for you. Then you do crunches, oblique crunches. Basically, you do an ab superset. And I see you do oblique twist, crunches, oblique crunches, and planks. Again, too much. Your exercise selection is too much for one day at least. Pick 2. Progress on the 2, kill yourself on the 2. You can use the other 2 somewhere else on a different day. You don't need to do so much, especially for something like the abs. Isolation movements are great, but you don't need to have them all in one day. So that's what I would do on that day. You start with the SSB squat, then you do RDLs, and then you can do, and that's also going to facilitate your superset, you can just pick like a reverse hyper, and you can superset it with one seated calf raise, okay? So that's one superset, and then your second superset is going to be donkey calf raises and two ab exercises. That's going to save you a ton of time, because here, I don't see any supersets. Of course, why? Because you're working the same muscle group. You cannot superset them, or else you're just going to be moving no weight because you'll be tired. The solution I give you by reducing the exercise selection on the same day and the exercise variety and number of sets is going to allow you to match the supersets, which is going to allow you to save time. And I guarantee your progression is not only going to be not hurt, it's going to be better. So that's what I would do. Wednesday you rest, that's good. Thursday. So what we just described was a lower day that was mainly focused on the posterior chain and the abs and the calves, because the quads didn't get much love. An SSB is it's not mainly, but it's a lot of posterior chain. It's not as much quads as a normal barbell squat. So maybe you don't have a quad focus. If you do have a quad focus, maybe switch it up. I do see, however, that for a day that's so posterior chain heavy, I don't see any risks of lower back injury, which is good, because the exercises are safe. On Thursday, you start with a T-bar row medium grip, supersetted with a dumbbell incline bench. So you have a tendency to like to superset your upper back work with presses, which is totally fine. You do them pronated, so that's a good grip. A lot of people do them with a neutral grip. Pronated, I've never seen. Pronated is going to hit more upper back and rear delt, so that's your choice. Oh, I know, and you do it as strength work. Okay. I think the T-bar rows and I think horizontal rows in general, I wouldn't really let them be strength work, simply because I do think that a lot of them require to be warm before, especially in your legs and lower back. The T-bar is it's a different beast, because you can stay more vertical. It's my opinion that type of lift doesn't deserve a slot as strength work, because I see afterwards that you do incline bench and you superset it with your lat pull downs again. I would take that set and I would put it first. The T-bar rows can come afterwards. And again, your lat pull downs, if you can go heavy on lat pull downs, I would try and have you do pull-ups instead. I think they're better for hypertrophy than lat pull downs for multiples of reasons. And if you can load them, it'll be even more so, and it would even more justify their space and their spot as strength work. So, as far as the rep ranges go, 4 sets of 6 to 10, excellent rep range for progression. You like to do your superset. So you do 3 sets of 10 to 12. Same logic as I said before. 3 sets for 10 to 12. It's not bad, because the range of progression that you give yourself and the range of evolution within the set is good. Then you do flat dumbbell bench superset with cable row narrow grip. So you've already stacked at this point 2 presses with 2 pulls, which for most people I would say you're maxed out on that day. That's already the upper limit of movement pattern repetitions I would allow most people to do, unless they're really specialized. And after that, I see that you do cable fly isometric holds, so that's good for the chest. Superset with cable rear fly, so that's a good superset because it uses the same machine, 3 sets of 15, good rep range. Cable tricep extensions, which finally, that's your first long head of a tricep exercise. Compared to all of the work you do for the presses, the lateral and the medial head of the triceps, which already get a lot of love with all the natural compound presses you do. So I would tell you also to maybe add some skull crushers on your Monday. Okay, then you do cable curl easy grip. So that's your first bicep exercise. Again, if you have lagging biceps now, you know why. Cable curls easy grip. Okay. I'm not a big fan of curls using cables. I think you get better results with free weights for that body part. Then you do Facepull superset with side raises and Dumbbell Shrug. Okay, so I tell people that their upper body days are going to look much more crowded than their lower body days. That's normal. Some people don't get it and they think they misprogrammed, but that's normal because of the multiplication of small muscle groups up there that react really well to isolation. You're going to multiply the exercises. Unlike the lower body where you want to work your quads, you do a knee flexion. You want to work the posterior chain, you do a hip hinge. So you have less exercises, but you end up moving more tonnage through just the strength of the body because you're stronger with lower body lifts. But even here, I think it's too much. I think you tend to do too much. And the issue when you slap so many exercises on one day is you mitigate progression, you make it much harder to track, you have a tendency to enter windows of intensity that are not relevant, you usually use lifts that are not super important. So I would trim your upper body days. Just like I did for the Monday, I would trim it down. So you start with your incline bench and you superset it with a pull-up. After that, you do your T-bar row and you superset it with, you can even superset it, maybe not. You can superset, see the T-bar row on that day I really don't like. I really don't like. So I'm going to just go, because you have it as strength work, which means you like it. So let's keep the T-bar row. So you do T-bar row and you can superset the T-bar row with something like the cable tricep extension and even the cable curl. It's not going to hurt your progression. So that's going to be a giant set. And then you can do cable rear flies, face pulls, and maybe not. So maybe replace the face pulls in the previous superset. No, keep the face pulls out of it. Do the cable rear fly, superset it with side raises and dumbbell shrugs. So you're going to have, and I'm going to recap because maybe it's going to be tough to follow. You start with incline bench superset with lat pull down. After that, you do T-bar row that you superset with the tricep extension and the easy bar curl. And after that, you're going to take the superset that includes the cable rear fly, the side raises, and the dumbbell shrug. So I trimmed the flat dumbbell bench with the cable row. As I said, it's a stack of presses and pulls. We've already done that. I took away the isometric holds. I took away the face pulls. All of these are going to act as a stimulus that already exists in the workout. So if you tell me that you need that stimulus to push volume and tonnage because progression on the other lifts is stalled, then the lifts I just put in the garbage bin, you can take them out and you can slap them as an additional giant set at the end. But I truly think you don't need them. Okay? And after that, we're going to do that, of course. This is week 1. I'm going to make the second episode about week 2. Friday. And Friday, it's what I like to see. It's a lower body day. I see 2 lines. It's not complicated. Leg days, lower body days are hard, but they're not hard. They are hard, they're not complicated. So you'll write them and you'll be all happy because it looks like nothing, and then you do it and it's hell. That's how it's supposed to be. You do box squats, 4 sets of 7 to 10. I don't like box squats. I'll make a video about why I don't like box squats for hypertrophy, but if you like them, keep doing them. I do think, however, that unlike what most people think, box squats do not recruit more quads. I'm sorry, I don't care about what the studies say. It doesn't make any sense that they would, especially with the way most people box squat. It becomes a hip hinge. It stops being a knee flexion, it becomes a hip hinge. The stance recruits way too much hips. You are not going all the way through the range of motion that stretches the quads. In my opinion, it's not good for quads. And since you already do an SSB, I see a lack of work for the quads. So if you don't want big quads, then by all means keep doing that. But if you do, you might have to start doing free squats. Then you do plate-loaded deadlift machine again, but this time you do real deadlifts. Those are not real deadlifts. They're much easier than real deadlifts. The only thing they match would be the upper trap stretch. But even for the mid and the lower traps, because of your torso angle, you're not going to get the same results. It's not going to load the spinal erectors as much. It's not going to load the posterior chain as much. Do real deadlifts. You can use that machine afterwards for, I don't know, the weighted stretch or for shrugs, but use a bar for deadlifts. And you do 2 sets of 10. For something like a pull from the floor, which technically that's not a pull from the floor, that's too high volume, too little sets, you would get more results doing deadlifts with less volume in terms of hypertrophy. Then you do hip thrusts, GHD, reverse hyper, lying arm curl. So you do all of your posterior chain superset again, you don't need that. Just do real deadlifts and then tell me if you want to do 4 sets of isolation work for the hamstring. The answer will be no. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to pick an exercise of isolation for that posterior chain that is going to help with injury prevention by deloading the spine and the sacrum, work on flexibility of the hamstring to prevent a tear when you deadlift heavy, and protect the lower back. So I would say you do your box squats. And again, I think holistically, I sort of predicted, I didn't predict anything, but if you do box squat and you do real deadlift afterwards, it might be the reason why you don't do the real deadlifts, because the box squat is going to tire your lower back and you don't want that. So on that day, you might start with something like a pose squat that is not going to tire you as much. Do it 7 to 10 reps. And after that, you can do your deadlift. I'm always wary of telling people to do both a knee flexion and a hip hinge on the same day because it's sometimes a recipe for disaster. But if you are going to have 2 of the exercises follow each other, it's always best to start with the squat and then do the deadlift, because the squat has the negative component that puts you in a position where the lumbar spine is at risk. So you start with the positive only, and you just, when I say that, I pray that you're not going to be an idiot and you can control a lift that's positive only, like a deadlift. But since you're going to have to relearn the deadlift and the post squat, it won't be a problem because you'll be patient with it. And after that, you're going to do deadlift and you're going to do 1 set of 5. That's all you need, 1 set of 5, and you're going to slowly ramp up to 1 set of 5. After that, you will do reverse hypers and superset that with donkey calf raises. And then you have a giant set for your core and you go home. You're done. It'll take you an hour, 40 minutes. You'll get better gains instead of doing a circuit of machines. Saturday you rest, and Sunday you do Viking press, which is a good lift, superset with T-bar rows. Okay, why not? 4 sets of 8 to 10. I have nothing to say against that. That's good. I would, if you get good gains from that, do that. I like overhead press for the shoulders. If you like the Viking press because of the way your hands are placed, the neutral grip, then do it. Then you do GM press. I don't like hybrid lifts, and this is one of them that I really don't like. I think it's not good for the elbows. I do think that if you want to get long head of the tricep work, do skull crushers. If you want to get lateral and middle heads of the tricep through a compound, do close grip bench. This is sort of a middle of the road lift. I'm not a fan. You superset it with chin-ups. It's your first vertical pull. I think you should be doing more vertical pulls with your body weight. And for both of these, you do 3 sets of 12 to 15. So at least you stay in a high rep range for the GM press, so you protect the elbows. You won't get a freak injury from that. That being said, the counterpart of this is you might develop an overuse injury because you do so many reps. Then you do cell rows, wide grip, that you don't superset this time. I do think the cell row is something you should superset. 3 sets of 15 to 20, that's too high. For a cell row, you're going way too high in the reps. You're entering windows of intensity that are not relevant, so don't do that. Real dart fly machine, superset with hammer side raise machine, no problem with that. 4 sets of 15 to 20, you're starting to go too high again. 4 sets of 12 to 15 would be better. And then you do dumbbell shrugs, 3 sets of 20. Shrugs are an exception. You can go, 20 is fine for shrugs. I like 15, 20 is fine. Okay, so on that day, I'll keep the Viking press superset with the T-bar row. Your GM press superset with chin-up is not bad. I would do, however, besides the exercise selection, I would do, however, the cell row that I would superset with the shrugs. That way you get the yoke done work. And then you do dart fly superset with hammer side raise and you're done. So that would be for your first week. I'm not going to discuss too much the frequency because that is something I want to keep for week 2. I do see a real, you really tried. I see that that's a program that was thought out. I do think, however, that there are certain things that are not mastered. And I do think that you are a bit too greedy with your exercise selection. You're trying to do too much. A lot of people do that. They do too much and they don't realize that 20 to 30% of what they end up doing not only doesn't do anything for them in terms of progress, it also hurts them. So I'm going to continue with next week's review. If you have anything that you want to add, OP, between now and the next review to wrap up the program, let me know in the comment. I will pin you because any indication you might give me helps me help you. Thank you. Have a good day.